What is up guys, my name is Cal and welcome to the channel. So Pokemon Legends EA was released on October 16th, which is almost about a week ago, and over the course of that weekend, I finally got some time to sit down and properly play the game. Now I just want to say that this is not going to be a full-on review of Legends EA. No, as a matter of fact, as I am making this video, I am about 20 hours into the game. So with that said, think of this video as my impression of the first 20 hours of the game, nothing more and nothing less. On that note, this video will be spoiler free from anything to do with the story, and all of the clips you will be seeing are just me exploring the city, doing some side quests, or just catching Pokemon, or just battling my way through some trainers. So, with the introduction out of the way, let's get straight into it. Now, for some context, I've been playing Pokemon games since I was like 12 years old, which means I played through every era of Pokemon from the red, blue, and yellow days to the most recent entries, which are Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So with that in mind, so far I've been having a really good time playing Legends EA. Graphically, I would even say it's the best looking Pokemon game to date. I mean, the game has some of the coolest looking NPCs I've ever seen. Some of these random NPCs are so dripped out in cool gears that I genuinely think they might be some sort of minor or major characters later on. The Pokemon seems to be pretty polished, at least more polished than Scarlet and Violet and Legend Arceus. Aside from their usual idle animation, it seems like every Pokemon that I've seen so far has more animation when it comes to how they interact within the world. Pokemon that are usually in the water can be seen jumping out of the water when you get too close, ground-dwelling Pokemon can be seen burrowing around in the ground, and some Pokemon can be seen resting on top of light poles or even trees. The Pokemon attack animations are also by far the best in the series. Most attacks have updated animations, which are bigger and flashier, while looking and feeling more impactful. Attacks like Ice Beam look devastating because it pierces through the target, while you can really feel the impact of two Pokemon slamming into each other when a Pokemon uses a move like Aqua Jet. On that note, Luminous City looks and feels like a city that never sleeps. No matter if it's night or day, every corner you turn, there are always people or Pokemon roaming about. While you only have Luminous Cities to explore, the game is actually pretty vertically dense. For starters, you have the ground level, which is where you will find most of the shops, 2 cafes, 2 Pokemon centers, and of course important landmarks. There are also the rooftops of every buildings, which usually leads you to cool items or rare Pokemon. Now you can't go into every buildings, but for the few that you can go in, some are actually mini dungeons where you'll find more items as well as Pokemon that doesn't spawn in the overworld. The one thing I can acknowledge about the city is that most of the building looks pretty flat, and that's mainly because it looks like they just copy and pasted an image of a window on every building and call it a day. However, like I said, I've been playing Pokemon since the 8-bit days, so this was something that didn't really bother me. Performance-wise, the game has been nothing but buttery smooth. Mind you, I am playing the game on the Switch 2, plugged into a full HD monitor so that I can record some footage. Now, my capture card is kind of old, so it really doesn't do this game's justice, but so far, it doesn't seem like there are any slowdowns or frame drop from my version of Legends EA. For those of you who bought the game for the Switch 1, this might be a widely different experience for you. Anyways, when it comes to the gameplay, with this new combat system, battles are super easy to get into and are extremely quick. You could easily take out an opponent in less than 30 seconds by using all 4 of your attacks back to back to back. With how all of my attacks have individual cooldowns, it really feels like I'm playing an MMO like WoW or Final Fantasy XIV. Now, I was a bit thrown off at first because I thought I would be the one controlling the Pokemon, but instead, I'm actually controlling the trainer, and my Pokemon would kind of come to me after it finishes an attack. This was definitely weird at first, because to reposition your Pokemon so that it doesn't get hit, you would have to use the trainer to lead it out of harm's way. Overall, I like this new combat system. However, it's not perfect and it can definitely get pretty clunky at times, but over the course of the 20 hours, I've gotten quite used to it. Next, I want to talk about the roster of Pokemon in this game. Overall, I'm good and happy about this roster. Looking at it, it makes sense to have all of the Gen 6 Pokemon in here as well as all of the Megas that have ever existed. Some staples like Pikachu, Riolu, and Eevee are of course in this game, as well as some pseudo-legendaries. I'm not going to spoil any of the new Megas, but some of the new choices to get Mega Evolutions are pretty spot on and look amazing. Now, when it comes to scaling, I noticed early on into the game that my main team was about 5 levels ahead of my story mission, which made them a lot easier. So, to make the game a bit more challenging for myself, I made 2 teams. One for the story missions, and one for just walking around exploring the world. I'm glad I did this because some of the later bosses was actually a lot more difficult, with one wiping me out. Exploration wise, the city is filled with so many activities for you to do. Wild zones are of course where you can go and catch Pokemon. These are pretty small when you compare it to Legend Arceus, but they're dense with so many Pokemon roaming around. Now you can have a pretty chill walk throughout some of these earlier zones because most of the Pokemon are pretty nice and passive. However, later into the game, some zones are riddled with extremely aggressive Pokemon. The smaller area then becomes your worst nightmare because you'll be swarmed by a bunch of bloodthirsty Pokemon. Now, depending on who you ask, this could be a really fun or really stressful situation. For me, it kept me on my toes, which is really fun, and I am enjoying every second of it. Now, there are also side quests in this game to keep you busy. These side quests will of course reward you with items, as well as unlocking new paths for you to explore, and even in some cases, Pokemon you wouldn't otherwise find in the game. Not only that, but there are also these parkour or obstacle courses that you could do. Completing these courses will reward you with a special currency, and most will lead you to the top of a roof where a rare Pokemon could spawn. Now, I think for a good 5 to 6 hours of this game, whenever I do one of these courses, I would somehow end up about 600 miles away from where I had initially wanted to go, and to be honest, I'm not complaining. I'm actually having a great time just getting lost in the game. Another thing I want to add to the exploration is that Alpha Pokemon makes a return to this game. They function just like they did in Legend Arceus, only this time, since everything is so compact, it seems like these alphas are way more aggressive. I swear these things can smell you as you enter the zone. I kid you not, I have been chased out of a zone by a couple alphas in fear that it would knock me out. And I'm not talking about my Pokemon, I'm purely talking about my actual character. On that note, I guess this is another returning feature that I thoroughly enjoy about these Legends games. If a Pokemon hits your character too many times, you can black out and have to restart from a Pokemon Center. It just adds another layer of survivability, which I think is healthy for the game and doesn't really make it too easy. Now, there is one thing that is quite disappointing about Legends ZA, and that is because it doesn't have voice acting. Look, the game has amazing cutscenes, but it's so jarring to see a character moving their lips and nothing comes out of it. All I gotta say about it is that it's 2025, close to 2026. Whether it's good or bad, Pokemon should have voice acting by now, and for some reason, it does not. Hopefully we will get it in the Gen 10 games. Anyways, to end it off, I have not had this much fun with a Pokemon game in a while, and so far, Legends ZA seems like it has a lot of care put into it. For those of you who are on the fence about getting this game, I say give it a chance. Otherwise, that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.